I have a session called Editing Music Tracks. Not the notes that make up the music, but editing music tracks, maybe the kind you'd find in a music library. So if you're new to this, there are some terms to cover, so let's start with that. And just for a while, let's pretend that all music is in 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. 4 beats per bar. So let's take a closer look at the timeline rulers. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. They're all just ways of counting time, sort of like pixels and inches in graphics are ways of measuring space. I zoomed in so that we can see what's inside of bar 1 here. So there's bar 1, beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, beat 4. Then we're ready for bar 2, beat 2, beat 3, beat 4, bar 3, beat 1, and so on. So in a second, here's a second. In a second, I have a certain amount of beats, I have a certain amount of samples, and I have a certain amount of frames. Now, beats per second is not particularly useful, so we refer to beats per minute. Now remember, we like to have our timeline show us what's important at the moment and get rid of everything else. So let's Option click or Alt click on a PC on minutes and seconds, time code, and samples, and have it show us bars and beats and nothing else. Now the big counter is one of the extra windows we can open for extra information. So we'll go to Window and choose the big counter. And it will usually count what's in the main counter window, unless you change it. Right now I'm seeing SMPTE in here, so I'm going to click this little arrow and change it to bars and beats. Sometimes in library music they tell you the beats per minute. But let's say this one came without that information, and we have to be detectives and look for clues. Let's see what kind of music we have here. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, and we'll take a listen. So we have 4 bars. Let me jump to the mix window here and change my volume just a little bit. I still think it's a little loud. And let's try for something in that neighborhood. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Right away, you can see that this counter across the top is wrong. So I'm going to show you 3 ways to do this, and then I'm going to kind of make a case for the timeline method, the third one I'm going to show you. The first one is tap tempo. If you have a tempo field showing, which would be in the transport, move this up here, unclick this conductor so that I have a tempo field. That's one place you can find it. Another place is in Event, Tempo Operations, in the Tempo Operations window. So there's another place you can find it. And when you're active in that field, I'll play the music and I'll tap a MIDI keyboard as I do this. All right, so I came up with 96 here. Notice it didn't change here. I'm calculating with my MIDI tapping that it's 96. Let's just file that away, set this back to 120, and close this window. And I think generally the tap tempo method gets you into the ballpark, but I don't know if it's precise enough to allow editing on the grid. So there's another way. The second way is to match tempo. So let's create an instrument track in stereo. Shift-Command-N, like all new tracks. We'll move our counter out of the way here. And in the mix window, I'll slide up here and insert the Boom plugin. So he's an instrument and boom. Rather than use this pattern, let me pull his volume down as well to about there. Rather than use that pattern, which is kind of busy, let's try in the 101 folder, there's one called Minimal 2. Its native tempo is 120, but it'll conform to whatever tempo we choose. And this is a simpler pattern. Now, with that set up, I'm going back to the edit window. I'm going to close the Boom plugin for the moment. And if I hold down the Control key, I can get a pencil and draw in a note. I'm going to go over here to this little keyboard, hold down Control, and click on this. I need to click right here, and then I can draw a note. So these notes will be the length of your grid value. So if I don't want quarter notes, like I just got here, I'll go up to my grid value, change it to 1 bar, delete those notes that I just drew, hold down the control again, and draw quarter notes. I want 4 of them. Now, these aren't necessarily on the grid. There's various ways to get them on the grid. One simple way is to go to the MIDI event list in the window menu, and I can see that they're off by that much. They should be 1, 1, and 0, 0, 0, and they're off by that much. So, easy way to do this is to go to Event, choose Event Operations, Quantize, and we'll move these fellows to whole notes and say Apply, and now all my values have changed to 0. And I have the nice round numbers that I want to see. You might think that MIDI events would be in the event window along with other events. Nope. MIDI events are so special that they get their own window over here in the window menu. And the key command for that is Option equals or Alt equals on a PC. Okay, now we get to listen to our drum against this library music and see if they're in sync. And let me switch to the mix window for a second so we can check the volume of this as I play it. Well, it's nowhere close. My drums are much faster than the music. So if I look back here and zoom in just a little bit, I can see that the drums finish much earlier than the music finishes. I need the drums to finish later. I need them to play slower so that they finish later. And I do that by adjusting this tempo. So am I going in the right direction? Yes, I am. I'm looking up here for where the downbeat of 5 would be. I'm getting close. I think that's it. That's the same 96 we got by tapping tempo. I'm going to trim off this little piece that isn't part of the music here to right there. Moving this out of the way. And now let's listen to our drums and our music track together. And back to the edit window. So that system is called matching the tempo. We take something that we know is a bar long, and we match its tempo with the thing that we don't know the tempo of. And I think that system is probably precise enough to let you edit on the grid. But I'll show you my favorite method for doing this in the next movie.